Hello and welcome back to AC's 8-Bit Zone. Today's my 4th episode of Septandy, and if you saw the last episode, I presented my 5 Coco-2s, which of course are the TRS-80 Color Computer 2. I challenged viewers to take a guess at how many of the 5 Coco-2s would power on and actually work after being in storage for almost 20 years. Today is the follow-on to that, so if you want to see that first, I'll link it above, so go ahead on over there and then come on back here. That episode spawned 2 new projects that have had me very busy for the last 2 weekends and some late nights. So for project number 1, today I'll be showing you the quick and easy fix for some Cocos that have lost their color output. And then project number 2 is coming out next week, and you definitely don't want to miss that one. That's a big one on how to add composite video and S-video to your Color Computer 2. So for today, let's get started bringing the color back. By the way, to all the new subscribers, thank you so much for helping me pass the 100 mark. So partly due to Septandy, my new channel has met the milestone of over 100 subscribers. Thanks to everyone who's subscribed. Also, thank you for everyone who's viewed one of my videos, given a thumbs up, and also for all the great comments that you've made. I appreciate it and keep it coming. Now, you may remember my surprise in the last episode when I found 2 old Coco-2s showing the same problem. Here's what it looked like. Okay, here we go. Number 1, what's going to happen? All right. Well, it's not green. It powered on into monochrome, and the text is there, so I don't know, do you count that? I guess technically no, right? But that's almost more than I expected for the oldest Coco in the pile. Okay, second Coco. Powering on now. Okay, it works too. Okay, so that's too much of a coincidence. I think something's wrong with my TV or the connection. I bet that's really going to be a green screen. Then there was one other thing that was not so much a problem, but a revelation. Oh boy. This is one of the reasons we hated the RF modulators so much. I think my next project has to be adding composite output to the Coco-2. Yeah. Go ahead and subscribe and tune in next week. I think I'm going to have a Coco-2 mod in the works for composite output. Okay, now in preparation for adding composite video to the Coco-2, I started reverse engineering the RF modulator so I could understand the circuits and the connections inside there. So now we're going to jump into the footage where I actually discovered the issue almost by accident that was causing those Coco-2s to show display in black and white. So let's move over to the bench and see what was the matter. This is the Coco-2 that was displaying an output to the TV, but it was monochrome, so we're not getting the color. So I just desoldered the case of the modulator, which takes quite a bit of heat on those 4 points, you know, here on the 4 corners, and then there's a 7-pin connector, and I just used the solder sucker to pull that solder out. So it's removed, and I just have 7 fly wires. So I've soldered them into the board on this end, and they their DuPont connectors on this end and just stab onto the 7 pins of the RF modulator. So I have a ground connection here, so that's technically the 8th connection, and the signals from the main board up to the RF modulator look good. Okay, and so we'll just quickly run down and look at the signals. So starting on the leftmost pin, this is the clock signal. So I realize there's quite a bit of noise on that, but that's in the probing, and we're basically just needing to know whether the clock is present, and it is present. So we know that's good. That's okay. Now zooming out, looking at, this is the phase A signal. Okay, it's nice and square. The waveform's looking good. Okay. Then the reference signal. And we're AC coupled at the moment, so I don't know the DC level of the reference. Now the phase B signal, and it's also nice and square. About 0.5 volt peak to peak. I don't know if 0.5 volt peak to peak is exactly correct and the best and expected, but it does seem to be, it looks similar to other signals that are working. Okay, this is the combined luminance and sync, and it also is looking good. And pin 6, that's the sound, and there's no sound being created right now. And then pin 7, that's the 5 volt input, and again, since it's AC coupled, we're just seeing the ripple voltage on that. So the signals are looking good, and here the next thing that's interesting I want to show you. It's going to be a challenge to get everything in display at the same time, but let's see if I can get everything in display at the same time to show you. So I was probing around and I noticed that this monochrome display occasionally showed up with color. I saw the green screen. Well, not occasionally, but it happened one time. I just powered on and I had color. So I began probing around, and this is the interesting thing. All I need to do is touch the tank circuit now and we get color. Let me move out of the view of the camera. All I need to do is touch the tank circuit and the color comes back. Touch, untouch, touch, untouch. Isn't that cool? So I'm going to zoom in. So I'm going to focus in on this part of the modulator. The component that I'm actually touching right now is the back of one of the tuning pots. So I'm curious if what I'm doing is adjusting the capacitance in that tank circuit. And you know, a tank circuit is an LC circuit that has a natural resonance frequency, and its purpose is to generate a frequency that it could be the frequency that's used by the modulator for picking channel 3 or channel 4. I'm not sure exactly which. There's a couple of tuning pots on the modulator. I'm not sure which one I'm touching at the moment, but let's go to the schematic and see which one it is. And when I say schematic, I thought I would actually find one when I went out and searched for this. However, I did not find a schematic of the insides of the RF modulator. All of the Color Computer reference schematics just end at the pins leading to the RF modulator, and the modulator itself is a black box. So I actually had to reverse engineer it to come up with this. So what I have is a photo of the back of the RF modulator and a reverse engineered schematic. So I started with the MC1372 IC datasheet, and they show a typical application circuit. So I've just reverse engineered that and marked it up as to the actual circuit that is employed in the RF modulator. This image is mirrored like this. So when we were touching the tuning pot down in this area, well, now it's flipped up. It's actually up here. So that tuning pot is this 5-pin package here. So I was touching this area, or these two traces that were leading up here. And that was giving us the color effect. That happens to be pins 13 and 14 on the MC1372 IC. I transferred my handmade notes into the schematic. So looking at pins 13 and 14, this is the tank circuit. It's made up of the tunable capacitor C1 and the tunable inductor T2. And it was the back of T2 that I was touching to bring the color back. So it's very likely that one of these components has drifted out of spec over the years, and it could be just as simple as we need to tune the capacitor or the inductor. So I think I'm going to go ahead and start by moving the setting of this inductor, because that was the component that I was touching. Okay, starting with the pot. Oh yeah. Well, that actually did it. Okay, so let me bring the display back into the picture at the same time. Okay, so it's a challenge to get everything in view at the same time, but let's give this a try. So as you can see, it's back into spec now. We're getting a nice clear screen. You know, in the RF modulator world, this is a relatively clear screen. Okay, so all I did is I tweaked the pot ever so slightly clockwise. So let me get we'll just get the edge of the screen in view. And okay, here's this was the capacitor. I haven't touched it I haven't tuned it. So all I did is, let me go back. So I'll go back counterclockwise ever so slightly. Let's see. My arm is totally in the way of this, of the view here. Okay, let me see if I have everything in view now. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll just turn the pot back to where it was, which was a little bit counterclockwise from here. Okay, a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. There it is. So it was right there. And I found that all I needed to do is just tweak ever so slightly in the clockwise direction, and boom. So the pot wasn't bad. It was just, you know, it just had slipped out of specification over all of these years. So it was either marginal to begin with, or it shifted over time and it just needed some tweaking. But you know, it doesn't seem to be intermittent. It's very solid, and it's, you know, there's no jittering as I move. It's either, you know, it's in, it's out now. If I turn back to the clockwise, it's back in. So, you know, there's no intermittent nature to it. Let's try going a little more clockwise. Maybe before I do, I'm going to stop and mark the package with a marker so that I don't lose this position. I'm just going to mark the package right here, and the wheel, the dial right there. just so I know where the sweet spot is. And it's not like I'm going to turn it very far anyway, but I just want to see how far it needs to go before it goes out of tune in the other direction. So we're tuning it. Okay, I'm going clockwise. I'm maybe like just a fraction of a turn. Okay, it's back out. Okay, so let's go counterclockwise again. Okay, it's back in. And I'm about 45 degrees away from what I called the sweet spot before. Okay, so I'm going to keep going in the good direction. Now I'm at what I had marked. Now I'm back to where it was before I made any adjustments. Okay, so let's go a little more clockwise. I'm going to go a little past my mark. It seems like there's a range here. Yeah, there's a good 45 degrees of good zone in the tuning pot. I'm just going to sort of park it right in the middle of that. All right, problem solved. And I wonder if this would correct the other Coco-2. So I suppose I didn't. I'm going to try that next. And I suppose I didn't have to desolder the RF modulator. Yeah, I suppose I could have just tweaked the RF modulator without ever removing it from the case. But I needed to do this anyway because I needed to get a reverse engineered schematic because of my next project, which is creating composite output for the Coco-2. So we'll do a composite video mod, and that'll be up in one of my next videos. This is the lower serial number one. And looking over here at this TV display, we can see the problem is it's in black and white. Ah, look, I'm about to void the warranty. Okay, we have to do it in the name of science. Let's go in there. At least we know that this case has never been opened and it should be bone stock. Cover off of this RF modulator. Look how corroded things are over in this area. There we go. I want to tweak the tuning pots on this RF modulator, so I'm just going to mark the starting position. Okay, let's power on. Okay, I'm going to start with the resistor. This ought to do it. Oh, losing signal. Oh, that was the capacitor. I didn't mean to touch that one. Okay, I've gone about a quarter turn, going counterclockwise. There's one turn. Okay, I think we're getting worse here. Okay, let's go back. Going back clockwise. Going back. Okay, that's where we were. Right there. I'm going to keep going clockwise. So now this is the other direction from where we started. Okay, and we were losing it. Okay. Just make sure that. Okay, so I think we were. It was already. So I think it was already pretty much in the sweet spot. Okay. I'm going to move down to this capacitor now. Boy, that's sensitive. I'm not even turning the screw, I'm just touching it. Okay, so it's sensitive to my body's capacitance, so I think I need to get an insulated screwdriver or turn it a bit and then remove my hand and check. Turn it a bit more. Well, that was weird. I thought I saw some color. It was like an interference pattern of color. Okay, I think I've gone about one turn counterclockwise. I'm not having much effect on this. I'm going to go the other direction. Okay, I think I'm about back to where I started. Okay, so I'm able to, okay, there, I am able to affect the color. So it's not pretty, but I think I can make it, oh yeah, it's very sensitive to just tapping the capacitor. I don't think the capacitor is happy. So I think I'm going to leave it right there. I think I'll just leave the tuning right there. And I'm going to go ahead and remove this RF modulator from the board and use this RF modulator to make my modifications for composite output. This particular modulator seems to be more sensitive than the other one to touching it or to just time. If I just wait long enough, it seems like it can drift out of spec. So I think I'm going to use this modulator for making any modifications, and that way the modifications I'm going to make are to remove the RF modulation. So in that case, I don't care if the tuning cap or the tuning pot are no longer any good. And I'd enjoy hearing back from any viewers who have had the same problem or found this helpful in applying this to one of their old machines. With that fix out of the way, let's talk about the next episode that's coming up next week. I'm going to show you two different ways to add composite video output to the Coco-2, and then I'm going to show you how to add S-video output. And you can have both composite and S-video. In fact, there are several choices, and different people may have preferences as to whether they want one or the other or both. So I'll show you the circuits, we'll compare the display quality, and then I'll survey viewers for what they think would be the best combination of sound, video options, and how to arrange them on the back ports on the back of the case of the Coco-2. So you definitely don't want to miss that. That's coming up in just a few days. So until next time, see you then.